that be? Nothing was said. Absolutely nothing was said. And on the eve of the implementation, you now want to raise a concern. That is disingenuous. You see, President, we must hold integrity and the accountability in having a consultation that would have arrived at a consensus.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what you're doing now, on the eve of the election, is to create a smoke screen. Mr. President, this opposition cannot be trusted. The people of Jamaica should not trust them. And the way they are demonstrating their arguments in this regard, they too must not trust themselves. You know, you can only, this move away from the consensus is only can be, you are part of the consultation. You never raised any concern.
No objection.
You raised no objection. Yeah?
2022, you said no objection.
There was no objection when the matter was raised. And you are part of it. Yeah, look, Mr. President, they can only be described as an ungrateful hitchhiker. You jump on the journey, ride along, and now when you almost reach the destination, you're hopping off. It is unfair and unreasonable. So, President, this merger represents a significant step towards strengthening our democracy, enhancing the overnight oversight mechanism and the functions of the ECJ. Mr. President, we reaffirm our commitment to upholding the principles of good governance, transparency, and the electoral integrity. And I want to urge my esteemed members of the Senate to support this crucial initiative for the betterment of our nation and the preservation of our democratic ideals. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Fraser Binns, is that you behind the mask being so loud? Senator Fraser Binns, please. Thank you, Senator Gill, Senator Scott Motley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to make my contribution to the bill which is before us, entitled An Act to Amend the Political Ombudsman Interim Act, and to provide for connected matters. I note that the Memorandum of Objects and Reasons makes a very important point, that the Office of Political Ombudsman has been vacant since November 15, 2022. And the vacancy has resulted in the functions of the office not being carried out. Those functions include the investigation of complaints of misconduct or bias by political parties, their members, or their supporters. And I read that section because in light of what my friend Senator Gale has said, I have to ask him if this is the lens through which he sees good governance. Because indeed, since November 2022, there was clearly no political ombudsman in place. a local government election, which has been postponed time and time again, was, if the government acted constitutionally, going to be held by February this year. So any government who understood governance would have taken the opportunity to plan for this possibility. And what instead that they have done is to rush as usual, just a few days before an election is going to be announced, to table and take a bill. Is that good governance?
No.
Is that good governance?
No.
So this bill is before us the day after nomination day, when elections are due February 26th. In other words, Senator Gale, we have no body nor person who has the authority to deal with matters of this sort at this point in time after nomination day. Is that good governance? No. Is that good governance? No. If that's the standard of good governance, then this country is in serious trouble and should seek to correct it immediately.
That's tricky.
But let me, I don't think, that any thought has been given to this bill. Not by the minister who piloted it in the other place, and not by my colleagues who are sitting here. Because they would never, especially Senator Gale, who has forced me to rise on my feet at this stage. They could never see this as a significant step towards strengthening our democracy. Let me tell you what was a significant step towards strengthening our democracy. It was the inception of the Electoral Advisory Committee. And then, having performed admirably, been transformed into the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. Such was their performance and their demonstration that they were prepared to protect the democratic traditions of this country, that there was consensus that that body should be entrenched in our Constitution. And part of the reason why the decision was taken to entrench it in the Constitution is because they didn't want to leave it to the whims and fancies of any government which determined that they wanted to tamper with it.
Especially the one who spent too much time downstairs.
And therefore, in this debate, I stand with Carl Samuda. I stand with Carl Samuda, who served on the Electoral Advisory Commission for 8 years. And I stand with Carl Samuda, who went on to serve at the ECJ. Yes. And I stand with Carl Samuda, who said that in his view, this change would reintroduce concerns and confrontations of a partisan nature and distract from the distinctly apolitical and neutral work of the ECJ. Yeah. So you want to understand what he means by that? You need to look at the role of the political ombudsman, which I challenge any of you to tell me that you have done, because I know that you have not done that.
I haven't done it.
Well, maybe you have done that.
No, she said no.
Maybe Senator Golding Campbell had done that. And if you have, then you would agree that the way to have treated with this matter was the way which somebody not too unfamiliar to you had proposed. Whoa. That is to strengthen the work of the political ombudsman, to widen its ambit, and to give it the opportunity to impose even more sanctions. That was a considered view. what has been done here by the minister is something he has not even thought about. And I'm going to tell you why I say so. Because I'm not making a submission without authority. So let us pause and look at the investigative powers of the Political Ombudsman. At Section 14 of the Political Ombudsman Interim Act, it says the Political Ombudsman may, in his absolute discretion, so now we put in the ECJ and we put their absolute discretion, determine whether to undertake or continue an investigation, and in particular, but without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing, may refuse to undertake or continue any investigation if he is of the opinion, A, the subject matter is trivial, B, the complaint is frivolous or vexation and not made in good faith, C, the complainant has deferred for too long the making of his complaint to the Political Ombudsman, D, the complainant does not have sufficient interest in the subject matter of the complaint, or having regard to all the circumstances of the case, no investigation or further investigation is necessary. That takes the ECJ from being the protector of democracy to actually descending into the fray. That's right. And you know, it's very interesting. I digress briefly. Senator Braham and I both sit on the Constitutional Reform Committee of Jamaica.
He's coming off, man.
And it was he who opened up my mind to the possibility of taking a holder of an office and putting them in circumstances where they might actually become part of the political fray. I had supported a proposal which had been advanced, and I was adamant that I was right. And when I heard Senator Braham point out the dangers of that step being taken and the need to have certain office holders above political fray so that their office could not be tainted in any way, I conceded and agreed that he was right because his arguments were sound. And his arguments then are relevant now because the Electoral Commission of Jamaica should not be tampered or tinkered with. There is no question in my mind that having a political ombudsman has contributed to enhancing the political traditions of our country. And I'm even further emboldened to say, so has the ECJ. And it's very interesting, you know, because the universe has a way of sending signals to people if they would but listen. Because the very day when this matter was being debated in the House is the very day when there was a fracas out in St. Thomas. And what was interesting about the fracas is how different people looked at the same video and saw totally different things.
So the President and the General Secretary of the PNP and that commission will see the same way?
No, people saw it totally differently.
Misusing their weapon.
Yesterday, I attended a nomination for the councillor candidates in Central Clarendon.
5,000.
And I had an overwhelming experience.
Tell them, Donna, tell them.
I had parked my car at the nomination center and then walked with the councillor candidates through the town of Clarendon, through the town of Maypen, forgetting that I had left my car at the nomination center. And expecting, in any event, that we would have been back there long before the time for the Jamaica Labour Party. When I got a lift to go back there for my car, I was traveling in a pickup van which had all kinds of orange fabric and everything. And as we were going in to the area, which by that time had a flood of JLP supporters.
You mean a trickle? A trickle?
It's Central Clarendon we're talking about.
Oh, okay. I thought it was over by 7 people was there.
And of course, it created some level of excitement, which is quite understandable. So I said to the driver, let me out and let me walk. So I walked into this group, probably about 200 or more JLP supporters. And I was the only person wearing an orange shirt.
This was up in Moko.
The members of the Jamaica Labour Party greeted me. They hugged me. No, it's very important. I'm making a very important point. They hugged me. They kissed me. They told me that Mike was there. They escorted me to where he was so I could greet him. They assisted me in ensuring that I was able to reverse my car on the road, and I was able to leave. But I contrast that, Senator Webby, with when I was a candidate in 1989. I could not sleep at my house for 2 nights straight. There were attempts on my life. I was one of the first persons to get a bodyguard in that election. Central Clarendon was notorious and famous for violence. It was deemed a garrison. It was deemed a garrison. The order of the day was bogus voting.
You were in the Middle East.
There was violence. And I made the point because I want to make the point to people who I know are not going to listen, who are not interested in the journeys we have made, to say we have come a long way. When I tell young people about what I endured as a young woman in Central Clarendon, they think I'm writing a novel, because it is inconceivable, one, that I would have endured what I did and remained alive. And I tell, no, Senator Hill, thank you for the liberty, Mr. President. When I bought a house here in St. Andrew at the time, I put my sister's name on it because I said, I'm not going to survive, they're going to kill me. So let us just make it easy and make it joint tenants so you can get it. I am not making anything up. I am telling you what is a fact. And that is what I am trying to tell you, Senator Hill, that you must be careful and recognize the progress that we have made and the institutions which are a part of that progress.
Yeah. Absolutely. And don't contaminate them.
This has already descended into a partisan political fray. For those of you who care to understand it, because the narrative which has been created is that, the opposition cannot be trusted. Those are the talking points. Yeah. Well, let me tell you this. There was no discussion about it. Just in the same way, there was no discussion about amending the Constitution with the Political Ombudsman. The same style, same strategy. And the minister who is in charge did the same thing when the Road Traffic Act, when there was an indicative ruling that the road traffic penalties which had been imposed were incorrect. He tabled first a validation bill. Yeah. And then somebody told him, you can't table a validation, you can't validate provisional tax measures. Then he tabled another bill so that the extraordinary thing, which I can say, my experience is the Senate sat, then adjourned on a Friday, then the House sat, and then adjourned, and then the Senate sat to pass that bill. That is not good governance, Senator Gale. That is chaka-chaka governance without consideration or thought. That is not good governance. And this minister has demonstrated a proclivity for acts like that.
What that mean? What that mean?
It means too much rum.
So when you think that the opposition cannot be trusted, the opposition is on a mission to preserve the democracy in our country. And the opposition is not going to support. The desire for power. The desire for power is when you table and take a bill of this magnitude. The desire for power is when civil society calls on you to halt.
Yes.
And you don't pay them any attention. The desire for power is on demonstration here in this house. When you tamper, as Carl Samuda says, with a body which has demonstrated through the years that it acts with integrity, that has earned not reputation only in the Caribbean, but international acclamation for the way that it performs. And that is what you want to change. You see, this whole concept of indivisibility is similar to collective responsibility of the cabinet. And when you do that, when you do act of indivisibility, and there is a partisan political decision which is taken, maybe not partisan, you know, Senator Hill, but a decision which is taken involving political players, the perception out there will always be that the ECJ has acted in a partisan political way, that they have actually become players on the football team. And you can't, there is nothing that you can do to disabuse people of that perception. Nothing. Because once there's a decision which does not please half of the population, that half is going to be critical. And all we are saying is don't do it. Think about it. There are many other options available to you. It's not like this is the only course which you can adopt. There are many, many options available to you. You can appoint a tribunal. You can appoint an interim person. There's a lot of, obviously you have not looked at the Political Ombudsman Act to see that she can appoint a tribunal. That under this legislation, and let me.
That's what they should tell the Minister of Finance about the SSL.
So,
when did you draw out your money out of SSL? Did he?
When you all finish, tell me.
I just made a lot.
SSL money, not just any money. SSL money. Who's money?
Senator Hill, I actually thought that this bill would not be proceeded with. Yes, because when I saw how the public was responding to it, like people who did a vox pop in the street, when I saw civil society and how they reacted to it, I actually thought that the government would have reconsidered. And let me tell you part of why. There is no real mechanism in place for any complaint to be heard before this local government election is done. The minister has said there are 63 offices, offices, one in each constituency. And therefore, the report, I assume, because he himself was not clear. I would not agree with the listener who described him as being like a headless chicken. I totally took strong objection to that description. But he himself did not seem very clear as to exactly how this would function. And so I ask the question now, so what is the mechanism for reporting a complaint? To whom should it be reported? At the ECJ offices in all these constituencies. Once you have the complaint, what are the next steps? Who at the ECJ is responsible for further processing it? In other words, what are the mechanisms and the guidelines which have been put in place to facilitate this working over the next, I can't count. So Monday, starting, say the Governor General assents and it's Monday. How much time would be left for the... Less than 2 weeks. So how do you do that? What have your thoughts been to see how it could function? If, Senator Gale, this is good governance. If this is good governance, then give me the explanation, Minister Hill, as a person piloting the bill, for how you intend to operationalize it. If this is good governance.
The senator must ban it.
For political purposes, and clearly only political purposes, this decision has been taken to table and take this legislation without any due thought or consideration being given to it. And you know, Mr. President, since I do know that we have other people waiting to speak, let me just say this. I was deeply disappointed when I heard the minister's view of the Electoral Commission. I was saying how deeply disappointed I was to hear the minister's view of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. I value their work. I think the country values their work. There has come to be respect and regard for the way they approach things. It is, as I said, a body which is the envy of other countries. Highly regarded, copied and emulated. And when I heard that you were just some men sitting around a table, I said, my president?
Yes, he's that.
Our president?
Our president of the Senate? Underutilized, wasting time, sitting around a table? It sounded like all that was missing was a cup of tea.
He said that his chair isn't so close to the table for it to be back off a little.
This...
That's bad, man. Give 2 months and say he changed his mind.
Mr. President, today I want to thank the Electoral Commission of Jamaica for the sterling work that it has done. I want to commend the Electoral Advisory Committee for having demonstrated what is possible in a Jamaica where governance matters and where democracy must be preserved. And I urge the ECJ to, against all the odds, and in spite of what this government is trying to embed and to drag them into, to fight it and find a way to maintain their integrity. I can assure you, Mr. President, that that is a daunting task. Because once you enter into the political arena, those missteps of which you will be judged, those are missteps that you cannot recover from. Oh, but if only they had done it another way. If only their strongest desire was not to impugn the opposition, but to look at this country which we have and institutions which we have created to uphold and demonstrate our finest traditions, or if this was not just about power and not about rushing through legislation, which is becoming so frequent in this House. And if the Senate could only perform its role differently, as you, Senator Webby, asked me to do when you had raised the state of emergency, when you asked that when you were very upset that I had indicated we were not going to support the state of emergency, and I've never seen you so emotional about any issue, before or since. Because what you were trying to do was to appeal to a better nature. You were trying to say that we were to look past and beyond to share your view. I have learned, having spent time in the Senate and having been through NIDS and the constitutional amendment, that rather than that response, what happens is that people actually dig their heel in. Like they get a caucus and they say, boy, we're going to go defend this thing, you know. And they dig their heels in a way you can't budge them at all because they forget. They actually forget what they're supposed to be doing when they step in here. And that, I think, is a sad thing. Because people of integrity sit here, but they don't carry out their role. They don't perform with their higher nature for the higher good, if it pleases you.
Thank you, Senator Scott Motley. Fortunately, they're not referring to you because Senator Brown said, Comrade Dan Webby. I don't know you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thanks for that presentation, Senator Scott Motley. I've not seen you so passionate in the Senate for a very long time. But that's
good when I can ignite.
yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I think that's what the Senate is about. Good debate and respect each other's position. And I seem to have made a big impression on you, Senator Scott Motley, because every time you get a chance, you speak about me and the SOE. Well, thanks a lot. At least it was lasting. Mr. President, I understand the political landscape, or I think I understand the political landscape, that there's a local government election shortly, and that the political fever is very high. I understand that. Before I start my formal presentation, Mr. President, I think it goes beyond debate, Senator Bunting, and you have contributed very well, that the ECJ is world-class, best in class in the world. We are well respected. There's a little disjoint which I'm going to try and come back to. So, Mr. President, I rise to contribute to the debate on the Political Ombudsman Interim Amendment Act 2024. As indicated earlier, and as heard from the previous speakers, the purpose of the bill is to transfer the functions of the Political Ombudsman to the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. But first of all, I think it is due that I take this opportunity to recognize, Mr. President and colleagues of the Senate, the individuals that have served as the Political Ombudsman since 2002. I want to, for the Hansard, refer to E.G. Green I call him Uncle Tony Green, stalwart Calabar man and a great cricket fan. Honorable Bishop Harold Blair, Justice James Carr, and Donna Parchment Brown. And I can say quite confidently that all of the persons mentioned above reflect that the office of the Ombudsman requires a level of impartiality, probity, and sound judgment to represent the interests of the public by investigating and addressing complaints. It is true to say that these individuals answer the call to serve, and this shows true commitment and dedication to Jamaica. In doing my research for this presentation, all have raised concerns in the past that the office of the Political Ombudsman, and they refer to it, that it lacked teeth, whatever that means. Lack teeth, lack teeth in terms of sanctions. Teeth, that's what I said, teeth, yeah. So I therefore, in doing my research also, Senator Scott Motley, I think it is my opinion that the ECJ will be much more equipped to deal with the breaches of the Code of Conduct. That is my opinion. I go further to say that consideration therefore should be given to empowering the ECJ to impose sanctions for breaches. And that's what we mean by lack teeth. We need to look ourselves in the mirror, Senator Brown and my colleague senators, and ask ourselves really, from 2002, how effective has that office been in terms of carrying out its mandate, the Political Ombudsman Office? Really do, and ask ourselves the question, how effective it has been. Mr. President, I think there is some amount of well, by the way, Senator Bunting, that's the best water in the world, so you can drink it on camera. Mr. President, it appears that Mr. President, that the main contention of the other side is that there's a risk, and I'm trying to understand that risk, Senator Bunting, that the Electoral Commission members' impartiality and probity could diminish if it executes its function of the Political Ombudsman. And I think that is where I'm having a disjoint of that risk of the diminishing effectiveness of the ECJ if we merge both institutions. I believe that this bill addresses one of the main concerns that has surfaced over the years. That is the vesting of the powers of duties of the Ombudsman in a single individual. That has been a concern, Mr. President, the vesting of the powers and duties of the Ombudsman in a single individual. This bill addresses that issue. The public must have confidence in the office, starting with how it is structured. And Senator Scott Motley did refer to that in terms of how it is structured. Transferring the functions from a single person to a body of individuals, in my mind, is preferable to engender trust. I noted the opposition proposal to appoint 3 eminent individuals to act as the Ombudsman, and this was underlined by Julian Robinson, who normally gives some very good suggestions, I must say. But then I asked the question of why are we duplicating effort and increasing costs by setting up a separate tribunal? And it's a question. Because, you know, the truth is that when I look at the composition of the Electoral Commission, I mean, the commissioners are of the highest eminence in Jamaica. I'm speaking about Honorable Justice Carl Harrison, totally non-political, great man, very well respected. I'm talking about Justice McCullough, very well respected, right? And I think we need to remember, and we need to say it here, that the ECJ comprises of 2 two members of each political party to create that balance of the independence. Right? Well, I'm saying it again, Dr. Senator Floyd Morris. Right? I'm saying it again. And I want to specially recognize my colleague and friend, the chairman of the ECJ, Earl Jarrett, who has been doing a fantastic job as chairman of the commission. My decision in terms of the debate today relates to a statement made by Minister Chuck when he said that Earl Jarrett, the chairman of the commission, wrote to him saying that the electoral body is ready to take on this additional duty. That weighed a lot in terms of my decision, in terms of how I will vote today. I trust Earl's judgment in terms of taking on this additional role to ensure that it is seamless, Senator Hill, and very effective and very cost efficient. So I believe that the Commission is more than adequately resourced to ensure the Office of the Political Ombudsman is effectively administered. And I believe the members of the current ECJ will ensure the word governance is used, and it's a word that I take very seriously, will ensure that there's strong and proper governance in terms of the political ombudsman under the ECJ. I believe that. Let me back up a little bit, Senator Brown. One of the things is when you are merging or coming together, you have to look at the vision and the purpose of the two entities that you are merging. So I did my research, and I looked at the vision of the Office of the Political Ombudsman, and I'm going to read an extract, Senator Scott Motley. It says, this office will be steadfast in ensuring that political representatives, those aspiring to political office and constituents, enjoy a fair and just electoral process as well as wholesome representation. So that is the vision of the political ombudsman. Then I looked at the vision of the Electoral Commission, Senator Fitzhenley. And I'll read an extract from the Electoral Commission. It says, vigorously promote the principles of fairness, accountability, and good governance, and ensuring that elections are conducted in accordance with the law, thereby giving effect to the will of the people. Mr. President, I'm sure you'll agree with me that when we compare the vision or the purpose of these two entities, that both institutions are striving to achieve the same outcome. So I'm trying to figure out why is this disconnect in terms of pulling the two together, being a more effective and efficient organization. Nobody can question the ECJ in terms of their governance. So why question it now at this point? Why use the word governance over and over when the ECJs have the highest integrity? I don't understand. So what I see being proposed by this bill is not a conflict of roles, but a bringing together of two roles that complement each other, the role of the ECJ and the political ombudsman. I agree that commissioners are fully capable to carry out the functions of the ombudsman in an impartial and competent manner. I believe that. Senator Dan Webber believes that. Mr. President, Senator Scott Motley also raised the point about accessibility to the political ombudsman. The public must have easy access to the office. And Senator Scott Motley, I believe, and you raised it, and maybe there are some details to be worked out. I give you that, right? But when you have 63 locations across the island, based on information, and that information is on the website, I think this can be leveraged, Mr. President, to further enhance the visibility of the political ombudsman and also ensure services are widely available. I envision this as a network of offices connected to each other in a central database, which can then be reviewed by the commissioners of the ECJ. This must be a huge, huge, huge asset in terms of what we are proposing today, the 63 location. And this will complement the online registration of complaints. This will complement the online registration of complaints, which was established by the office some years ago. So, Mr. President, I did not hear, to be very frank with all of you, the opposition make an argument that not so far. I have not heard so far the opposition make an argument that I really think could have offered a better solution that we are here today discussing, debating. I believe vesting the ECJ with the function of the political ombudsman will strongly support, as I said earlier, the shared vision to ensure fairness in the electoral process and create efficiency in administration. So it is my opinion, colleagues, senators, and president, that this bill seeks to enhance the quality of the independent oversight of the electoral process, to protect Senator Hill the fundamental right to freedom of thought, conscience, belief, and observance of political doctrines of every Jamaican. Let me repeat that. I believe that this bill seeks to enhance the quality of the independent oversight of the electoral process, to protect the fundamental right to the freedom of thought, consciousness, belief, and observance of the political doctrines of every Jamaican. With elections a few weeks away, I hope every effort will be made to communicate with the public about the new structure of the role of the political ombudsman, subject to being passed today. Mr. President, I was heartened to hear what turning into a doctor now, Senator Scott Motley, just like how Senator Bunting is turning him into a comrade. No, on a serious note, years ago, and I'm not too old, Senator Scott Motley, but years ago, what I saw on the TV last night almost brought me to tears. When I saw in almost every instance the PNP and the JLP supporters hugging up as brethren and brethren, sister and sister Lammy, Senator Brown. I've never seen an atmosphere like that for a long time. Senator Scott Motley, as you said, Senator Scott Motley, we'd never seen that a decade or so ago. We need to give ourselves credit where credit is due, that the political maturity of this country has come a far way within the last decade or so, has come a far way. Even in Senator Bunting, I know we have our differences, but even in the way we debate in this House as senators, we have come a far way, and what I saw last night has shown political maturity in our beloved country, Jamaica, where I can look on the screen, Senator Crawford, and PNP and JLP are hug up and a drink together. And I think as politicians and as senators and as political representatives, Senator Bunting, we need to speak about that some more to our nation. That although we have political differences, we love each other and we can be one. And I saw it last night on TV. Almost brought me to tears. Because 10 or so years ago, I could never say that. So while I believe, and we have a difference of opinion, I believe, based on my own research, that it makes a lot of sense to approve this bill, Mr. President. I want to take this opportunity to sincerely wish our country a peaceful and fair election. As I said before, and I say it again, that while we tend to be critical sometimes, Jamaica is the greatest country in the world. and we have come a long way. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Webber. I'd ask Senator Crawford, just give me a minute now, please. Senator Webber.
Yes, sir.
I appreciated your contribution very much, but I just make an observation. The Electoral Commission of Jamaica, of which Senator Bunting and I have been a part, views itself as an institution. So just, if I could just ask that in looking at the Electoral Commission, we leave the individuals out of it and deal with it as an institution. I should have, you kind of caught me off guard when you were identifying individual members of the commission. We try to, am I not correct, Mr. Bunting? We view ourselves as an institution, a collection of individuals who try to reach consensus at all times. So.
The eminence of...
No, man, I appreciate that. Okay. And all of us consider ourselves eminent.
That's the part.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right.
Mr.
All of us and the commission.
Mr. President. Mr. President.
Anyway, thank you very much for that. Really
I'm
heartfelt.
happy to speak.
Both the contributions or the contributions so far, I get the impression, are heartfelt and are coming from a really good place. And I know that Senator Brown is going to continue in the trend that has started here. Thank you very much, Senator. Senator
Mr. President, there's a good place for me to start in responding to you. 2 weeks ago, I spoke in the State of the Nation debate. You weren't here, my friend, Senator Comrade Webby. But I said that in this chamber, the debate has been rigorous, but in the end, we're all friends. So maybe the people yesterday heard that the vigor of the debate doesn't reduce or diminish the friendship between us. We have come a long way. And that's a fear I have, that we may go back. We may revert to bad ways. Mr. President, I don't need to do the research. I lived in Senator Webby, where one radio station from the 60s coming up was seen as supportive of a certain political party, and the other radio station was seen as supportive of the next party. Not that it is so, but the perception of the people. So in my household, which was a PNP household, they never listened to JBC because they thought JBC was a JLP station. And today, in my household, they don't listen to a certain station because they believe that that station is JLP FM. Even when my good friend and United supporter, Senator Fitzhenley, was there. So I have no doubt that Nationwide has good intention, but the majority of people are now seeing it as JLP FM. Not that they set out to be that, to say that. It's like Fox News in the United States. MSNBC. I mean, I was once on radio, you know, and people thought that my views there was PNP views, and they weren't wrong. So, Mr. President, as an elder statesman, I'm able to look back on where we're coming from. The days when the president wasn't president then, was my friend just back from overseas and thought it was wise to dabble in local politics. My friend, the president, sought to run in Southwest St. Andrew to be nominated. He had to be taken in a military vehicle. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. To be nominated. I don't want us to go back there. I don't want us to go back to the days where Michael Manley is on a platform in Spanish Town and have to duck. If you call Mike Henry, I'll call Freddie. You're so young, you don't understand. I could call Freddie Nita too. I could call Freddie Nita. I could call McGann. So let's not go there. What I'm saying to you, Mr. President, some of us have lived it. And they even accuse me of having bombs. So you don't have to say it. Let me say it. I was even called to give a defense in the gun court. I am counting a vote at the Ministry of Labour, representation rights. And they say that I am stuffing ballot box. In other words, we have come a far way from the tribalism that has held back this country. And I am not saying it's tribalism on one side and none on the other side. I am saying our leaders, including PJ, including Siaga, have worked to build the ECJ into a respected institution.
Original bit was Michael Manley and Siaga, you know.
Well, I said Michael too.
Oh, you did say Michael, okay.
And then, Mr. President, Senator Samula.
And Siaga delegated it to Golden.
I want the attention of my friend, Senator
So it was
Samula.
Golden and
Samula,
Patterson that worked it out.
I lived through the independence debate over the Jamaican flag. And for a long time, Mr. President, I just said it a while ago, you're not listening, that's your problem, you're sitting on your ears. Get up. Mr. President, the Jamaican flag, because Senator Apcoff is saying, I'm going back to Jamaican flag. I was not even called upon to put up a defense.
Senator Brown.
Not even to plea. So him can't distract
Senator
me.
Brown, just talk to me
What
now.
I have to say is already written in the head.
Senator Brown, talk to me now.
Senator President, the Jamaican flag. Jamaican flag. In the Parliament at Independence, there's a dispute. And for many years, there's a section of the Jamaican people who had disdain for the national colors. It is not until 1997, leading into 1998, with the historic reggae boys going to the World Cup, that the nation embraced the Jamaican flag.
But you know, Senator Brown, I must tell you, I never knew that.
Well, that's what I'm teaching.
Yeah, so I will accept the teaching. At the same time, for a country to be 10, 15, 20 years before the general population accept the symbols of that country, it's not unusual, you know. But I didn't know about the dispute with the flag, to be honest with you.
President, what I'm saying to us here, that we have to use history and learn from it. Because if we don't learn from the history, we're going to repeat it to the sorrow of the nation. So I'm telling you that when we come to important institutions, let us try and find the consensus that will take us forward as a nation. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to blame anybody. I have other places can do that. Here today, my job is to say to us, let us not make the mistake. Senator Webby, I grew up and I went to church clubs. And I learned, Senator Abraham, the statement, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So in this debate here, I'm not accusing anybody on that side of bad intentions. I think you all have good intentions. Sadly, some of the good intentions, Senator Webby, may lead us to a place where none of us want to go. So what are the risks here? And Senator Gill, let me just say that before I deal with the risk. There's a case that is celebrated in the trade union movement. It's a case involving a man at BOJ, represented by the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union, of which my friend, Senator Gill, is the President General. In that case, Senator Webby, the bank officials had a disciplinary hearing. Johnson versus BOJ and IDT. So Ronnie can go and check it. What came out of that case is the multiple role played by one of the persons on the panel. And even though Mr. Johnson had done something wrong, the tribunal found the dismissal unjustified, and the Supreme Court affirmed the decision of the tribunal. But the company, BOJ, could have said that was for efficiency. And so for efficiency, we merge the roles. The issue, Senator Webby, is whether that was fair. And our courts said no, it wasn't fair. So what is being done here is about fairness. What we're going to be asking the ECJ to do is to, the same as if we ask a judge to be the judge, the prosecutor, and the investigator. And maybe we throw in Senator Braham, the arresting officer. Because that certainly will be more efficient if we put everything just with the judge. We don't need a DPP office. We don't need police investigators. If the issue is efficiency, then abandon fairness. Abandon fairness. But that is not part of the democracy, and it wouldn't be good governance to abandon fairness. So the point I'm making is when you talk about efficiency, ask yourself, does it provide some risk, the route you're taking? Is it fair? Let me give you an example, Senator Hill. Let's say in the constituency of Qatar. No, I don't want to mix up Jamaica in this one. Qatar. A man draws a gun on an opponent. That man, not here in the day, man. That man then puts up himself in Qatar as a candidate. Such a candidate would have to be nominated, as his nomination supervised or presided over by, say, the ECJ. I don't know about it, Fly. I don't want the president to say that there's a matter in court or anything like that. So I go back to Qatar. So ECJ have to do the nomination. ECJ, under this model, will have to supervise the election and conduct the elections. ECJ will also have to count the votes and proclaim the results. No, we sent to ECJ. No, Qatar. And if Qatar is in the east, don't blame me for the coincidence. Now you're saying, add to ECJ role of nomination, conducting the elections, declaring the results, that they must investigate this man who is a candidate, who drew a gun and an opponent. Investigate the misconduct, pronounce on the misconduct, probably go as far as disqualify the person. Here's my problem with you now. I can't make it more cogent for you because you're sitting on your ears. So, what we're saying to the ECJ, go and pronounce on an investigation you have carried out, which conflict with some of the other rules you have to do. When the rule that said the man in Qatar named Dean Jones, any other name like that is pure coincidental. Said the man in Qatar named Dean Jones, and it says Dean Jones is disqualified. Dean Jones supporters and party is going to say the ECJ is biased. In so doing, we have brought the ECJ by our conduct into disrepute. That, Senator Webby, is the risk we're running. That, Senator Webby, is inducing the ECJ to operate in a condition which doesn't bode well for fairness. And that is why we have these separations of roles. I can understand a House of Representatives who think that they are a rubber stamp for the executive. I can understand some in the Senate thinking they are a rubber stamp for the House of Representatives. But our independence requires us to be critical thinkers and to have vision. The vision that got Portia Simpson Miller saying, I want a highway from Harborview to Port Antonio. The vision that got her going to China and negotiating the money. The vision that got her to go to China when others go to China, get a call from Washington and say, no, we can't take no more money from China. That's her excuse. So, Mr. President, Senator Webby, the risk is great. And I want to quote Senator Apqua Fitzhenley. To quote No, leave him alone. Pedro, leave him alone. I'm going to read a quotation, President. How important it is to keep the ECJ out of the fray. One person once said, and I give you the date, September 2006, said in St. Andrew, the person said, Senator Bunting, it is important that the office of the Political Ombudsman be beyond reproach and not to be impugned or demeaned in any way. I agree with that person. That person was the MP and still is the MP for West Central St. Andrew. Those are the words of Andrew Warnes. And what led to that, President, as I come to teach history? He had refused to shake the hand of the person who was the political ombudsman and PMI on a tour of the West Central St. Andrew constituency. So I pulled the story. Gleaner carried 29 September 2006. Onis apologized to Blair. What would it be the thought of those people who refused to follow Onis and walk with the political ombudsman stroke PMI? Their view would be the political ombudsman is symbolism. We don't need him. We don't need him, would be the opposition. It's the same thing that can and will happen to our beloved ECJ. And let me make it clear. When an ECJ have to discuss the events in Qatar and they elect the representative of the parties, say, the tape doctored. And the next one said, no, the tape don't doctor. The man drive onto the man's premises, beat him up and draw a gun upon him. Division. Disrepute. And so, I want to make it clear that we can't condone this move. It's a bad policy, and it will be a bad policy when it's implemented, a worse policy when implemented. Mr. President, it's all right. You know what you said the other day? I'm not going to pay attention on this. The other day you said Floyd Morris must apologize. And Floyd Morris is right because the documents of the non-disclosure is in the court. That's one. You also said that I am not living in reality because I say your government has lost the confidence of the people. Well, the referendum on the 26th will see whether you right or you wrong. Brethren, let me tell you this. At my age and stage, I have no future in the politics.
Senator Brown, at your age and stage, you're not supposed to fall for them little
No, I'm going to fall to it because I'm teaching and beating today.
No, I never called him a bait. I never did.
No, you see?
I say he mustn't fall for the verbal bait.
He has come to replace the neophyte. And I understand his naivety. Mr. President, our politics have come a far way from the days when the tribes were at physical war. What happened? Yeah, man, cool down. No, you answer. What happened in St. Thomas this week? What happened in St. Thomas this past week? What happened in St. Thomas in the past week? What happened in St. Thomas in the past week is bad for politics. It's bad for politics. Poor fella. It's bad for politics. I recall allegation of candidate doing wrongs, and the candidate get pulled. Now, I'm seeing a return to the past. Candidates are charged with serious acts of dishonesty, and it's been nominated. We hear candidates who are charged saying they're not charged, which is not true. No, no, no. The one in Brownstone, Floyd. Mr. President, yesterday,
Senator Brown, you know that person is before the court, right?
which one?
The same one you're talking about.
You mean the
No,
St.
man,
Anne
hold on a
one?
little bit. And there is a presumption of innocence, you know. And
She
you
said
have
she's
all-
not
You have
charged.
all people who,
She
who
said she's
has
not
been
charged.
you have all people who has been the benefit of that presumption should
No,
be
no, no,
joining
no, no.
people in it.
I am not, there's no presumption. I was not found guilty. I was even asked to answer. So, charge? Of course, police do that all the time. Police do that. Mr. President, we need to move away from what I saw yesterday in southeast St. Catherine, where man claim ownership of constituency that lead to violence. Big rock. Mr. President, we need to expunge these types from our politics. If this country need to go forward and continue in peace, continue towards the better society that we want for all. The signs are dangerous. We need to cut the link with people like Dean Jones. That's a man with the gun in St. Thomas who APCA party
Senator
has
Brown,
put up as a candidate.
I don't know. I really am exhausted here now.
You may be.
And you know that what you are doing is not right. You know it.
What is not right?
You know that you are not right.
It's not
That
before the court.
What you are doing is not right.
It's not before the court.
And you have a situation where the leader of your party has referred to a former member of your party as a traitor.
Thank you for
And you
repeating
don't
it.
mention that inside here. Where the
But you are
chairman
there
of your party
you
stand
are
beside
there
a man preaching violence against a candidate who was in the People's National Party before your party leader. I am incensed by what he's doing. You need to stop it.
Mr. President,
Might be
who
inappropriate,
need to
but
stop
I'm
it is
incensed
you.
by it.
You
And
need
you're
to stop
talking
it.
about not politicizing the integrity.
You need to stop
You're talking about not politicizing the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, and that's exactly what you are doing, and I resent it.
Mr. President, you may resent it. You may resent it. What I'm saying, we are carrying the ECJ into the fray, into a fray where a commissioner of the ECJ, sitting in this parliament as president, can express the views you express and believe that people out there is going to believe that the ECJ is above reproach. It's a dangerous course we're entering. And I close by saying, anytime you accept a Warmington initiative against a commission of parliament, you're on the wrong side of history. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator, I'm sorry. You know, it is such a, fate is such a thing. Everything that Senator Brown said in the last 4 minutes and my intervention were all said after 1:20. And, it's and will be struck from the record. Senator Avenue.
Mr. President, as we can see, it's about 1:20, and I ask that the Senate be allowed to sit beyond 1:30 p.m. to complete the business of the day.
Yes, normally we'd have taken a break, but having had brief discussions with the members, we're going to go through. So, thank you very much. The question is that the Senate be allowed to sit beyond 1:30. Those in favor? Against? Senator Bunting. Senator Bunting. It's okay.
Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Crawford. Nice to see you again. You see your uncle laughing after you. I don't know.
And you check up on me more than him, you know, Mr. President. I think Abka has gotten to him. What? I can't. I'm going to do it to me 2 times now. But Abka, my campaign manager. Yes. Mr. President, it's not my intention to suggest that there is no merit in some of the arguments that I've heard from the other side. And indeed, I've found great merit in some of the arguments that I've heard on this side. However, my greatest concern is the flippant way in which we have been consistently dealing with very, very important matters and very, very important institutions. I call to memory recent debates on the DPP, and there was great knowledge that the DPP's contract was coming to an end. In spite of that knowledge, it was delayed until the end of that contract that what some perceived to be constitutional changes were proposed for the current DPP to have the age of retirement changed. And one reason was because they haven't gone through the process of selecting a new DPP. That's a flippant way in dealing with something that is of great importance. We come again here to see, in this case, the political ombudsman, that in this case her period, her tenure, came to an end. And at the point that her tenure came to an end, there had been no preparation for a replacement. So much so that we went for almost a year, if not more than a year, 15 months. So a year and 3 months, a year and a quarter, without a political ombudsman. And the argument is being presented that the political ombudsman importance seemed to be reserved for an election period. And while but you see, even the mic change was handled in a flippant way, you see? Yeah, without consultation. Yes, please. Yes, sort me out. Thank you very much. So, where was I? Yes. He contributes to the speeches. But, yes, so in this case, it is being suggested that the election period is the greatest importance for the political ombudsman. I put it to you that this is not automatically so, because there is a constant politicking happening within our society that a referee may be deemed necessary at each and every date of the activity. Indeed, there has been political speeches for which many within the public would suggest that a political ombudsman should have taken note of some of the statements that were made on these political platforms outside of an election period. And so, to this extent, I would suggest that a political ombudsman's consistent and permanent placement is important. If we allow the argument to take root that the election is the period of consideration and concern, we may indeed have a system that a political ombudsman is only appointed for an election period and no consideration is made for other periods outside of that. Indeed, I join Senator Webby and Senator Scott Motley and also Senator Lambert Brown in identifying that we have come a long way in our political process. Yesterday at our nominations in Northwest St. Catherine, I had 3 groups of people under my PMP tent. The first group was those over 50 who were worried that the 2 parties would come together and there will be a fracas. That worry was not based on current realities, but based on their historical experiences. That they were saying, we should try to make sure we move within 30 minutes, and they were worried. The other group, who were under 30, they had no concern. They were identifying sisters and cousins over the other side that they were sure that they wanted to interact, to have a party, and dancing to the JLP song and JLP dancing to the PMP song. And then the referees of that were the people my age who were saying, let me hear what you say, let me hear what you say, because we had a little of the first one and a lot of the last one. That's the 40s. Sorry? A little of the criminal activities as a child. More stories than experience. And we have more experience with the under 30s than stories. But we were there saying, okay, we understand, and we were trying to rectify. But it showed that there were a set of Jamaicans that were scarred, mentally and otherwise. And the fear that they currently expose was based more on that time than this time. The institution of the ECJ had a lot to do with that transition and that transfer. But there's a saying that those who keep the peace are often criticized as being unnecessary when there is no war. So when there is no war, we often feel that those who are maintaining the peace have no duty and have no importance. And that, unfortunately, has been one of the criticisms of the ECJ, because we are no longer at war. There was nobody who was questioning the importance and the work and the effort and the salaries of the ECJ when we were moving from the bloody times that Jamaica had. But now that we don't have a systematic acts of political violence, but more acts of stupidity by persons in political fracas, not daily, but really an anomaly almost, we start to wonder if there should be more duties assigned to the ECJ. Where I think, Senator Webby, that the opposition has a point, it is in the public communication that is necessary for the Ombudsman, as versus the public communication that is necessary for the ECJ. The ECJ often reports on outcomes without having great conversation on the quarrels that came to the outcome. And the ECJ's outcome often have the support of the political parties whose representation would then have said yea or nay before the outcome. And there is a need, there is almost a desire for a middle ground, for equity. The political ombudsman often don't have the ability to find a middle ground in something that is right or wrong, and must communicate once the investigation has started. That open communication leads to the public's analysis of whether this is fair, unfair, PMP or labor right leaning. And because of bias, often once you lose the case, you accuse the entity of being the other side leaning. Indeed, if you lose the news, you accuse the station of the station being political leaning. So when the ECJ has to comment on every single report that is made to them for the public's interest, it creates almost a scoring system of 5-1 to the PMP or 5-1 to the JLP, which don't currently have a situation when they're having conversations that the ECJ currently have. The other concern that I'm seeing coming forward is the assumption that private conversation robs the parliament of its duty. Because if it is that there is private consultation with whomever that consultation exists, it doesn't absolve the parliament, most of whom would have not been in that private consultation, to carry out its role on behalf of the people that they represent. So there can be no, what you would call, skipping of the parliament's duty to have debate and conversation. There can be no robbing of Westmoreland's member from Eastern Westmoreland or St. Catherine's member from Northwest St. Catherine in having their own opinion on what is being presented. So the Prime Minister's argument that he had a conversation which has been denied to be true and an agreement with members of the People's National Party don't rob the representatives of their individual constituencies of their right to speak in Parliament. And it definitely don't rob the senators of their independence in having their opinions in the Senate. I never even hear what you say. That's the best thing. Yeah, it don't rob the senators of that opportunity. So what we have here is firstly a government that consistently waits until the last minute and then uses the argument of financing to reduce the importance of the activity. We were here at this time when financing was stated as a reason to not have an election in totality. There is indeed a cost to democracy. And that cost is going to be based on the importance of the action, not the importance of the action being based on the cost. So to say that there is cost savings is not, in my opinion, a worthy and satisfactory argument. Indeed, I put it to you that whatever the cost to not return to what has been stated in 1980, that cost should be taken up by the public in the right and in the estimation of that. And so I've seen other institutions that have been satisfactory, beneficial to the society. EPOC, for example, Senator Bunting, is one such entity.
That's one of the advisors.
They said he was a PMP at the time. Now that he's at the BOJ, I don't hear what he is anymore. Everybody said that? But EPOC, but EPOC, having been successful, we then found, and I see Senator Webby here, a great supporter of EPOC. But when they wanted one for security, we didn't say, join that with EPOC. We then had one for security. What's the name of that one? CMAC.
The one that they want to go to Felix.
They have not really gone there until they think there's a need to make a public statement. And then when they needed one for education, there's a new one now for education. They didn't say, join CTAC and HEMAC and head talk or whatever they want to say. They found it necessary to separate. Because when something isn't broken, maybe we should avoid the desire to fix it. And we have all stated that this is an example to the world of how this should be organized. And at the same time, we're saying there should be changes that might carry it. Not will. None of us knows the future. Into disrepute. What's that disrepute? That disrepute is two members from the JLP whose likely intent is to defend their interests and to report that. And two members of the PMP whose likely interest is to defend their interests and to report that. And even now we have a situation that the PMP General Secretary might be forced to be on stage stating that it was an unfair intervention by the ECJ. We have never seen that in the current setup with the current conversations. Or, indeed, the president who is now the president of the Senate, a required platform speaker, is highly demanded. Yes, by popular demand. Major financier of the politics. And the PMP too, he's an equal opportunity financer. But he might be on the platform stating that the ECJ deliberations were unfair. We have never seen that from him with the current deliberations. So unfortunately, we're putting a proposal in front of what is a unit. What did the president say? It's an institution that may cause for members of the institution to forget that understanding and that interest. Because the current representatives of the political party perceive themselves as members of the institution. If we feel that a group more than an individual should make these decisions, it don't have to be the ECJ. We can have another bill that speaks to how the prosecution, what do you call this, the political ombudsman should be organized. And that might include a tribunal. But to say the ECJ is the answer to a group more than an individual, I disagree with that proposition. I also disagree with the proposition that the political persons give any level of equity within these arguments because they go in with their great biases and come out most times with their great biases. So where we are now is that I believe that the current bill put before us is simply a, what do you say now, to placate the concerns that their inaction carried us to a point that we're in the heat of elections without a political ombudsman. And that quick fix might lead to more danger, more damage than good. To that extent, I believe that the government, having already lost the political argument about the political... well, I was going to say having lost the political election as well, but the referendum. But the political argument have been lost. There can be no way you can claim that a year without a political ombudsman was in the best interest of the country, nor good governance. There's no claim that you can make. There's no claim that you can make that there was any intervening force that made it impossible for you to put a political ombudsman in place. There's no claim. In fact, it can't be money because the JP have been going around saying the economy is great and money is flourishing and the benefits are coming. So there can be no argument. There can be no argument that we didn't need a political ombudsman. So therefore, you will gain nothing from forcing this forward. What should be for an institution so important is that there should be open consultation. And that open consultation is in the parliament. That open consultation is not behind closed doors. And so if you want to call a joint select committee so that the public can also have their own say, we would buy into that. We would buy into that so that the civil society can have their own say. And they're not represented. We'll buy into that so that the UIC can have their own say, and they were not at that consultation. We'll buy into that so that the Senate and the members of Parliament can have their own say. So it's a weak argument to suggest that backdoor consultations between the few should make such an institution with such importance to the many be changed with the risk of being depleted. And with that, Mr. President, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Crawford. Senator Bunting.
Mr. President. Former Commissioner. There are a couple of things, a lot has been said, and I don't want to delay the process unduly. But I think I'm obliged to address something that was originally said by Minister Chuck and which was parroted by the one-day busher here today. And that is...
You're not talking about my brethren.
That is when Minister Chuck labored to suggest that a no objection by me as a member of a commission, I think of 6 persons, it's the presiding officers and the leaders in both houses, which is really set up to address the compensation for the Office of the Ombudsman. And in sending a letter, that commission said that it notes that in the process of examining the status of the office, the Parliament may wish to consider a move may wish to consider a move to have the office of the Political Ombudsman subsumed by the ECJ. Now, a no objection to a letter which the majority wants to send to the government, saying they may wish to have the Parliament consider, is somehow saying that today I am in support of this bill, which I had never seen, or the contents of it had never been suggested, much less debated or discussed.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. Okay. It would be like saying, Senator Crawford, that a lady agrees to go on a date, and then the gentleman says, well, you agreed to a marriage because you said you would consider a date.
That don't happen with me, but the rest
The truth is that that is a massive stretch. Then Minister Chuck, again parroted today, went on to make some vague suggestion of a motion by Member Warmington back in 2012 in the House of Representatives. Now, I vaguely recall Member Warmington making some reference to the Political Ombudsman's office should be made redundant or obsolete.
No, vaguely, him say that.
And what I know is that I very rarely, even, I guess they say even a stop clock coincides with the right time twice a day. But if anybody on this side, and we were in government at the time, had agreed with Member Warmington, I would have recalled that. I don't recall that motion passing, and it had really very little to do with what is being presented here today. So to suggest that some vague 12-year-old motion by Member Warmington in 2012, when that side was in opposition, somehow provides the basis for discussion which took place about this much more specific recommendation. Again, it's just being dishonest. Not even going to pretty it up and use the euphemism, disingenuous. It's just dishonest. The
Not junk.
Minister Chuck then went on to make a great deal of the indivisibility of the ECJ. Not just in the House, but when doing the talk show circuit. The indivisibility. So I want to, and the way he used it, what he meant was that they must operate as a whole, as the 9 members, not like taking out the selected members separate, as if this was some inviolable principle. Well, you know, Senator Lamy, a lot of persons would not be familiar with the role of the constituted authority.
The what?
The constituted authority.
Tell me what that is.
Well, the constituted authority comes up under Section 44A of the Representation of the People Act.
Oh, it's not the law.
And it comprises the 4 selected members, no nominated members, the 4 selected members of the Electoral Commission,
Teach and beat.
and 2 other persons, one of whom is a retired judge and the other a member of the Privy Council. The constituted authority only comes into effect whenever an election notice is issued and has the ability to halt or to void elections where deemed necessary.
Constituted authority.
And I raise this to demonstrate that there is no principle of indivisibility in terms of establishing authorities which can act for limited periods of time, which are supported by the ECJ, and can even have members of the selected members of the ECJ acting independently of nominated members.
Them take over the 2007 election. Don't forget that.
Of course, they came into effect for the 2007 election. So there is no indivisibility. What I would say, as my friend Abka would favorite word, as an erstwhile member of the ECJ, the indivisibility that I recall was that even if decisions came to a vote, all of us, nominated or selected, would defend the position of the ECJ publicly, whether or not in the discussion that had been our private position. And I can tell you, people would be surprised if they knew how votes occurred at times. They might be operating that because you are nominated by the Prime Minister or because you are nominated by the leader of the opposition, the members will always need to vote together. But that's not how it is. When you are sitting around that table, you exercise your best judgment on behalf of the Electoral Commission, not just on behalf of your party, or not principally on behalf of your party. And I think those who have served would have a better appreciation of that, Mr. President, than those who have not. And I feel obliged to speak to that. And there are other, the ECJ's role has evolved and grown over time. Again, when we served together, the whole issue of campaign financing was added to the Electoral Commission, and the monitoring of campaign financing and the reporting.
And your role in that is still recognized by the Commission because you played a
thank you.
highly significant role.
Thank you for
utilizing your background in finance in bringing that legislation into effect.
I appreciate that.
You did, however, leave out the local government.
So it is recognized that there can be an evolving role for the ECJ. So, for example, the 2 additions that I've just mentioned, the constituted authority and the responsibility for campaign financing. In a general discussion of combining both at the ECJ, you could say the ECJ can provide administrative and technical support to a political dispute authority that could be appointed for limited periods of time when, upon not necessarily the announcement of an election, but even when the period approaching an election, like in the financing bill. So there were many options, Senator Webby, many options that could have been put on the table, moving from an idea of greater efficiency of combining it to the specifics of what is put here today. And I think it is important that in looking at these options, that we solicit the views of civil society on these issues, because there are many who thought that the Political Ombudsman's Act was toothless, that there were no, it was just a moral suasion sort of role, but there was no, or there wasn't sufficient sanctions for that. And I will tell you, when then Member Warmington attacked the Political Ombudsman's office with that motion about being redundant or obsolete, whatever it was.
That was no one who put the middle word.
Many of the civil society groups of the day came out and defended the office of the Political Ombudsman. So to suggest now that this was, something that was generally accepted by Parliament, it's just not true. There has been no consultation with the civil society organizations on this bill, despite the stated opposition to the subsuming in the last few months from the PSOJ, the Council of Churches, National Integrity Action, JFJ, CAFE, even a recent editorial that I saw in one of the daily newspapers. I would go further. Senator Scott Motley. Those of us who have been around long enough will remember Prime Minister Bruce Golding's budget speech of May 10th, 2011, and the subsequent confirmation in the September meeting of the Partnership for Transformation. PM Golding then indicated that the draft of the law was completed to strengthen the powers of the Office of the Political Ombudsman.
That's the Senator's father.
And to place the Office of the Political Ombudsman, the ECJ, and the Office of the Public Defender in the Constitution, as was envisaged in the acts establishing each of these bodies, which is why up to today, the ECJ is an interim act, because it had been anticipated that it would have been entrenched in the Constitution.
We are going to entrench it.
So, there's a long history. There's a long history to this. And in fairness, it has not been, up to now, a controversial history. Yes, there have been one or two members who have spoken a lot of nonsense, but you can't help that. That is a price we pay for democracy. But it is unfortunate that given the tradition of bipartisanship coming from the EAC, carried over onto the ECJ, that we're now placing the ECJ in this invidious position. And, there are some arguments which state that the functions of the ECJ and the Office of the Political Ombudsman are as complementary, or let me just say, are complementary. And in many ways that is true. In many ways that is true. But a friend of mine sent me something, and I without crediting, because he didn't ask me to call his name, but he says the functions of the ECJ and the Office of the Political Ombudsman are as complementary and as separate as the functions of the stadium management team. And the referee said the stadium management team makes sure the grounds are prepared, the facilities for ticket holders are appropriate, the stadium lighting, the field, etc. And then the referee now is the one who rules on the disputes during the game, punishing players who breach the rules. Yeah. So they're both complementary and also quite different. So just because they're complementary don't mean they must be the same. And this, I think, is the essence of the argument that we're making, is that these roles are complementary, but they're not the same. I personally think the efficiencies that we talk about achieving in terms of lowering administrative costs, etc., can be achieved by having the administrative support provided by the ECJ, but having a separate individual or body, similar to how the constituted authority is supported administratively by the ECJ. We could have that body as another option for a successor to the Office of the Political Ombudsman, whether we call it the Political Disputes Authority, the Political Ombudsman Authority, whatever that is, but not taking the same selected members and, in this recommendation, the nominated members and the director, and pulling them at the busiest time, because we know the busiest time for both the ECJ and for the Office of the Political Ombudsman is when you are in or approaching a political campaign. And that's the most intense period of activity. That's when the election monitoring center is established, etc., etc. You're adding this additional layer to the same set of persons. I don't think it is desirable. I don't think it is going to be effective. And we're setting up the commission to fail at this election, the first one out of the blocks, because we're already well into the election period. There have been no transitional arrangements made. There have been no regulations. There's no administrative machinery to effectively do this in the last 10 days or so before an election. So I say in all sincerity that I cannot support this bill. Perhaps if there is consultation, the widest input of replacement offices, then we could find a medium that we could support. But this is just bad governance and a bad approach. It is an arrogant one. It is contemptuous of the Parliament and of the people of Jamaica. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you very much, Senator Bunting. Minister?
Mr. President, I'm not going to delay us very long, but there are one or 2 points I want to raise. In moving to cut off this debate from happening, Senator Bunting said, there is no institution as important to our democracy as the Electoral Commission. Fully agree, Mr. President. That is the very reason, because it's so strong, why the ECJ is the institution to shoulder the responsibility of the mandate and responsibilities of the political ombudsman. In fact, Mr. President, this is not unusual. In 2007, the ECJ had to adjudicate when the political ombudsman couldn't handle a situation that happened in 2007, and it was moved to the ECJ. So it's not unusual that you have an ombudsman that some people thought could have been better, and when they couldn't handle it, it moved to the ECJ. So this is not unusual. Senator Bunting, in his November 10, 2022 email was responding to a letter that included this. This commission notes that, and it's a parliamentary commission of which he was a member, this commission notes that in the process of examining the status of the Office of the Political Ombudsman, the Parliament may wish to consider a move to have the Office of the Political Ombudsman subsumed by the Electoral Commission of Jamaica as the mandate of the Commission and their roles in our society have proven to be complementary. Let me read what he said. He didn't read for you. He didn't read what was responded. He went around the bush and make it sound like it was something nebulous he was responding to. So I read it for you. This is the response, Mr. President. Senator Bunting, and the response was on November 10, 2022 at 11:08 a.m. I'm not guessing. This is written. This, Mr. President, Senator Webby, is what he said. November 10, 2022 at 11:08 a.m. He said, listen carefully, listen carefully. He said, I have no objection, full stop. No equivocation, no variation. I am reading. I have no objection. I have no objection. He went on. He went on, Mr. President. Mr. President, he went on. I would urge the executive, that means the ruling government, to speedily consider the recommendations of the committee so that there will not be a protracted period between the departure of the ombudsman and the successor arrangements. This is what he wrote. In other words, I have no objection, but today he's objecting. And hear him go on and on and on. Maybe you should listen to what you wrote. Listen to what you wrote. Go and support what you wrote. Come on. You can go around, you can't rewrite what was written. Okay? You can't flip-flop on this. We have what you wrote. You say, I have no objection, and hurry up and do it. He never say anything change. No wavering, no equivocation. Hurry up and do it. I have no objection. So, Mr. President, Mr. President, I am, Mr. President, it's getting to him. It's getting to him. Let it get to him. Let it get to him. We on this side, Mr. President. We on this side, Mr. President. I've been to 125 countries. How many have you been to? Mr. President, the fear that Senator Scott Motley, a voice of reason, has voiced, I understand. She perceives risk that could happen, haven't happened. Okay? I have been doing business a long time, Senator. So let me tell you. So let me tell you this. The reason why we believe that the ECJ is where it should be is because it is easily, as I've said before, one of the strongest, most established institutions. And therefore, if we have something like the Ombudsman that is not working well, it's the place to put it. We have the highest respect for the sterling record of integrity and experiential capacity of the ECJ to handle this complementary responsibility. Further, we hold the members of the ECJ with the highest respect for their integrity, for their competence and experience. And so, Senator Scott Motley, there is no better or no equally respected place to put the political ombudsman than at the ECJ. Mr. President, if it pleases you. Finish, man. Finish.
No doubt he's going to ask for the bill to be read. The leader is going to ask for the bill to be read for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, you notice. Oh, listen to that. Put it. Mr. President, the Senate will now resolve itself. Sorry, that's for you to say. I conclude the debate on the bill and ask that it be read a second time, Mr. President.
Members should have heard the question from the erudite acting leader of the House. Those in favor? Against?
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Political Ombudsman Interim Act and to Provide for Connected Matters read a second time.
The Senate will now resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. That's not a question, that's a direction. Thank you very much. I put clause 1. Those in favor? Against? I put clause 2. Those in favor? Against? Senator Brown, you have something to say?
I'm trying to do.
No, I just didn't realize it. So I'm sorry.
The
Members, 1 minute.
The proposed.
1 minute.
Sorry.
Members, I'm recommitting clause 2 because I think I put it to the vote. So Senator Brown has an issue with clause 2. Go ahead, please.
The proposal for a committee to do the work of the political ombudsman over sending it to the ECJ. So be it resolved. The suggestion is that the clause should read that it be that a committee of 3 prominent Jamaicans be appointed instead of the ECJ to oversee the work.
Senator Brown's proposal is to replace where the words Electoral Commission of Jamaica exists and to replace it with a committee of 3 prominent Jamaicans. That is the proposal. Those in favor? Against? Noes have it. I put now clause 2 as it is written. Those in favor? Against? Ayes have it. I put clause 3. Those in favor? Against? Ayes have it. I put clause 4. Those in favor? Against? I put clause 5. Those in favor? Against? I put clause 6. Those in favor? Against? I put clause 7. Those in favor? Against? I put clause 8. Those in favor? Against? Ayes have it. I put clause 9. Those in favor? Against? Ayes have it. I put the title and enacting clause. Those in favor? Against? The questions that I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Those in favor? Aye. Against? So wait, Minister. I do report the bill as having passed committee stage without amendment. Minister?
Mr. President, I now ask that the bill be read for a third time.
Those in favor? Aye. Against? Madam Clerk? Divide? You're calling for a divide? Yes. Madam Clerk?
Senator Braham. Senator Braham. Senator Bunting. Senator Brown. Senator Crawford. Senator Fitzhenley. Senator Fraser Binns. Senator Gale. Senator Golding Campbell. Senator Hill.
Yes.
Senator Dr. Longmore. Senator Morris. Senator Samuda. Senator Scott Motley. Senator Webe. And Senator Williams. Webby, sorry. Thank you.
Actually, Webe is probably the correct pronunciation, not having been corrupted by centuries of living in Clarendon. I do report the result of the divide to the question that the bill be read for a third time as ayes 7 and noes 6, so that the ayes have it. Madam Clerk, you'll read the bill for third time, please.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Political Ombudsman Interim Act and to Provide for Connected Matters, read a third time and passed.
Yeah, Senator Scott Motley, you remember remind me what the decision was. So, members, the clerk is going to correct the mathematical error. Oh, it was my error. I read it wrong. So I do report.
It has to stand, right?
No, members, I apologize. It was my error. I did not read the thing properly. So the question is, I do report ayes 8, noes 6, so the ayes have it. Thank you very much, Senator Safra Longmore. Sapphire. Thank you very much. So, Madam Clerk, please read it, bill for the third time.
A bill entitled An Act to Amend the Political Ombudsman Interim Act and to Provide for Connected Matters, read a third time and passed.
Minister.
Mr. President, it's not intended to do any further business for the day. Therefore, I'm asking that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Yeah, thank you. Senator Sapphire Longmore has asked for a very brief intervention to just very briefly recognize National Play Day.
It should be. In my books, it would be. Thank you, President. Earlier this
No,
week...
Senator Morris, you are responding, you know. Senator Morris, you can't leave. You are responding to this. You are participating in the play day.
Earlier this week, on Wednesday, February 7th, it was recognized internationally as International Play Day. And Jamaica, particularly under the auspices of the Ministry of Education and Youth, as well as UNICEF, had several initiatives throughout the country and throughout the school system recognizing International Play Day. Mr. President, I wanted to take the time to just emphasize and underscore that play is one of the most wonderful things that we could do for our country, to encourage. It beats and it attacks the issues that we discuss in this House on a daily basis that we come here in terms of violence reduction and crime. And as the government seeks to ensure that more and more green and play spaces are provided through the parks and the lovely renovations that we're seeing throughout the country, I want us to remember as we go into this political phase that it is at the end of the day about the betterment of our people and the encouragement of activities like play at all ages. I encourage our children, our toddlers, our teens, our adults, our elderly to all play, because when we play, we reduce violence. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Safari Longmore. Senator Morris?
President,
Not the doctor.
Let me just join Senator Longmore in acknowledging this very important day. I know all of us in here knows what it means to be a child and that experience of being a child. And I think that in our quest towards development and our want for better even educational outcomes and developmental outcomes of our children, it is important to acknowledge the role that play and recreation has but everybody, of course. But even starting from that stage, you know, it's important for us to allow children to play and to be children. And so I just want to say to the general public that we shouldn't demonize the children for having fun. Or even the adults, but you know, and I place emphasis on that because we know that in our school system, there are educators who don't give enough emphasis to the importance of recreation and what that has to do with the mental health and well-being of our children. So we shouldn't demonize them. We shouldn't demonize them for recreation. And so Senator Crawford mentioned the importance of PE. Yes, it's still very important even as we look at the health crisis that we're facing now with young people. We see a lot of young people facing obesity, facing heart issues. So we need to encourage people to be more active and to play. And you rightfully said, not just our children, but everybody. Jamaica Moves was a great campaign, and we need to encourage Jamaicans to move about so that we can save some funds and we can prevent this epidemic of communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases that we see taking over among our population. So we want to just encourage that, and I want to wish all Jamaicans a happy National Day of Play. And Mr. President, Senator Brown encouraged me to let my colleagues know. No, you don't have to tell me to be careful. What I'm going to say is no. That I'll be on profile this Sunday. And so no, I didn't do that. I didn't even wear orange, but I invite you all to tune in and to watch that. All right. May it please you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Just before they move to adjourn, Minute Leader, just before you move to adjourn, I just want to thank everybody for the contributions made. No contribution was made that had no validity. no contribution was made without members feeling and making contributions which in their view are the best interest of the country. And I thank everybody, and I hope that the leaders of both political parties at every level will try to ensure that there is no need for the intervention of the Ombudsman in this election, and that we continue to demonstrate the level of maturity that has been demonstrated so far, that brought tears to Comrade Webe's eyes. And really, I hope that we can just go through the election season without a resort to any hostility or aggression. And just, as they say, out a road, just level the vibe, like we cut and go through, and hope that the better sense will prevail at every level. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, what a wonderful note on which to close today's session, and there being no other business that we expect to take, I'm asking that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Thank you very much. Your question is the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Against? This Honorable Senate now stands adjourned for a date to be fixed.
Jamaica, the land of Bob Marley, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Usain Bolt, and of course, Reggae Month, the only month-long reggae music festival on planet Earth, where something reggae happens every day in the month of February, ranging from mega reggae concerts, reggae award ceremonies, and educational symposia on reggae. February is Reggae Month. Reggae Month is February, when Jamaica invites the world to come to Mecca, Reggae Mecca, and come catch the rhythm like no place else on earth, only in Jamaica.
And that's how I made to give him the go. Breathe, I'm delighted. Jano say my passion ignited. Got the music get me excited. I'm coming like a boy.
Who are fans of reggae music, just come out and support Reggae Month. Whatever we're doing, whatever we're keeping, just come out and support us. Because this is Jamaica and this is where reggae is from.
It is Reggae Month. Make sure you come out and celebrate in every Reggae Month event. A Fiwi music, it is massive. It is powerful. Come out and celebrate Reggae Month.
I'm Nigel Clark. I'm the Minister of Finance and the Public Service. We want a public service that is fair, a public service that values people, and a public service that delivers high quality services. And in order to do so, we need to transform the public service. Jamaica competes in a global environment, The technology has transformed the way in which the world works. And for us to remain competitive, the public service needs to be in a position to deliver services effectively, efficiently, and in good time.
Brought to you by the Transformation Implementation Unit.
It's Friday, February 9. In the headlines, 499 candidates nominated for local government election. In business news, BOJ governor anticipates inflation to exceed 4 to 6% target. Regionally, Tobago oil spill escalates to Tier 2 disaster. And in sports, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price set to retire after the Olympics. This is the Weekend News on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The Electoral Commission of Jamaica says 499 candidates were nominated on February 8 to contest the local government elections scheduled for February 26. This number includes 496 candidates vying for seats in the 228 electoral divisions island-wide, and 3 candidates for the seat of mayor in the municipality of Portmore. Both major political parties, the Jamaica Labour Party, JLP, and the People's National Party, PNP, have each entered a full slate of candidates to contest the polls. The ECJ says a total of 4 nominated candidates represent the United Independence Congress, UIC. 36 candidates were nominated to contest the elections in 34 electoral divisions as independent candidates. You should know that each candidate was required to complete and return a nomination form signed by 6 or more qualified voters in the division in which they choose to run. Each candidate was also required to pay 3,000 Jamaican dollars as nomination fee. A candidate will not be eligible to be elected if he or she is under the age of 18, holds a public office, is a member of the Jamaica Defence Force, or has been declared bankrupt. The 2024 local government elections will be the first since 2016. Meanwhile, special service electors are slated to vote on February 22 ahead of the February 26 local government elections. Director of Elections, Glaspel Brown, says this group comprises of members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Jamaica Defence Force, and election day workers. Under the Representation of the People Act, provisions are made for these electors to vote 3 days before the rest of the population to ensure that they are available for duty on election day. More than 30,000 persons will be engaged as election day workers, to include presiding officers, poll clerks, supervisors, drivers, logistics coordinators, and handymen. The Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, launched the Inclusive Growth Index Framework, IGIF, a comprehensive measurement tool for growth, on Thursday. Reports are that the index will provide a more comprehensive understanding of the interrelatedness of key drivers of growth specific to Jamaica.
The framework was developed by the PIOJ's Growth Inducement Program, GIP, and was created to significantly increase Jamaica's ability to achieve the goals and targets outlined in Vision 2030. Director General of the PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, at the launch says it marks a significant milestone in Jamaica's development.
Today's event marks a significant milestone in Jamaica's development as we officially present a powerful new tool that was created to significantly increase Jamaica's ability to achieve the goals and targets outlined in Vision 2030 Jamaica, our National Development Plan, to attain improved economic and social outcomes for all. The many years of collaborative effort that has gone into conceptualizing and developing this tool has been driven by a commitment shared by many stakeholders to expand the traditional economic growth models, recognizing the imperative of inclusive and sustainable development.
He says the IGIF will analyze and provide tailored insights for people's needs.
The IGIF provides a comprehensive basis for measurement, tracking, and in-depth analysis, offering valuable insights for the creation of policy responses and proactive initiatives tailored to our people's diverse needs. Today's event marks a significant milestone in Jamaica's development.
Dr. Henry says the IGIF being tailored to Jamaica's specific situation makes it a powerful tool for decision-making and sustainable development planning.
The 2008 financial crisis and the adoption of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, in 2015 by the 193 member states of the United Nations underscored the importance of moving beyond gross domestic product, GDP, as a sole indicator of progress. While we acknowledge the existence of global indices, such as the UNDP's Human Development Index, the HDI, the IGIF distinguishes itself by being tailored to Jamaica's specific situation. Furthermore, the IGIF's wider scope and its focus on understanding the interrelatedness of key drivers of growth makes it a powerful tool for informed decision-making and sustainable development planning.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Denita Rodney.
Justice Minister Delroy Chuck wants more Jamaicans to learn about the benefits of restorative justice. Restorative justice is a system of criminal justice which focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with victims and the community at large. Minister Chuck says the system has been successful since its inception. He was speaking at the 15th Annual Restorative Justice Conference, which was held at the Spanish Court Hotel in Kingston this week. The conference was one of several activities held in recognition of Restorative Justice Week between February 4 and February 11.
And that is why I'm so happy